Hello Aquarius, and welcome to your December 2021 reading. This is a general reading, so take what resonates and leave the rest. If you would like a more well-rounded perspective, be sure to check out your sun, moon, and rising signs. Alright, let's go ahead and begin. The first card I have, or I'm feeling, is Indie. I'm just getting an overall sense about really connecting with that Aquarius energy, that sort of thinking outside of the box, being connected to things that are outside, other, alternative, in the ethos. Like the imagery that I'm really getting is the fact that this particular character is holding these, what I would presume to be like crystal balls, standing on something that looks less than inviting, really kind of tapping into that energy of rising above the ugly because of your connection to what exists within the other realms. That very much that Aquarius sort of rebel thinker, because your perspective and your connection is just different than most people. Your ability to connect beyond, to connect outside of, is really what I'm tapping into with this imagery, and the light that you will kind of emanate as a result of it. But I feel like that is overall energy for the month, something that you're going to be if you're not self-aware of, or you're not connected to already, this is kind of a call to action in a way, to remember your personal connections to this sign, your connections to this sign within the zodiac, and what it means to you and who you are, and what kind of allows your light to shine through, and how you can connect with that for really, like I said, rising above the ugly is probably the best turn of phrase I could use. We have next the nurture card. I'm getting the sense that, or nature, sorry. It's interesting that nurture was the word that I stumbled or I had brought out. So there's a little bit of a nature versus nurture maybe that you're going to be experiencing, but overall kind of stepping into a little bit of some darkness. I think that's one of the reasons why that connecting with other, that allows you to rise above the ugly and connect to the inner light, I feel is definitely coming in strong with this nature card and that concept of nature versus nurture. I think there is going to be some strong vibes about shadow work, essentially, and your journey with shadow work and understanding elements that what you need and what you may need out of necessity, maybe not so much what others may see as a need, but it is a need. So whenever, kind of coming from that perspective about what you need and what you have to do for those needs for self-preservation, protection. I see that in this imagery he has a trap, and I see that there is a bear here, and I feel that most people would be appalled at the idea of capturing a bear, and in most cases this is not something that you would generally set out to do. But if you also take in the imagery of this particular card, the man has no coat or sleeves. So this particular aspect of nature, if he does it correctly, is something that can provide both meat and clothing for the coming months. So that's what I'm talking about, that nature versus nurture, understanding steps or things that you may have done or who you may have become out of self-preservation, out of need, and coming to terms with those aspects of your shadow. This is the sort of work I feel that's coming through as you enter into the month of December. Really taking a look at yourself and not hating yourself for things that you had to do to survive, but being able to rise above it, no matter how ugly it may have been, and finding that internal light that allows you to shine for yourself, and eventually shine, possibly even shine for others if you feel that that is your place in life. But if it's not, at the very least, shining for yourself. We're following this with the Ace of Wands, and I feel like if you do the work for the shadow work and getting to the point where you're not loathing yourself for the choices that you made and the decisions and who you were or you had to become to be able to survive for self-preservation, if you can rise above it and build upon it in a way that is loving to yourself and accepting of yourself, it's going to really help you break through. And this break, there's just a warmth that comes with this breakthrough. There's a light, again, kind of pulling in that concept of light here to here. And I find it really interesting that when you look at the sequence of these cards, this light is more of a glowing light. So it's got a cool effect. It's the beginning of a light that's in a darkness. That's a rarely seen illumination beyond, you know, what might glow versus shine. The shadow work, the darkness that is in this card, the shadow work that you might have to do when you illuminate to rise above the ugly. But then you get to the point where the light that you have goes from this illumination within the dark to this shining warmth, vibrancy that you see in this particular card. And I feel like that is going to not only lead you into lightness, lead you out of the shadow and into lightness, but there's also the message that comes with that is that kind of action. So the wands has to do with action. And I feel like this is when you get to the point where you're able to accept these aspects and these shadows of yourself that you feel, you know, you may have originally or previously been negating or dismissing or trying to smother in the shadows. Once you face them and deal with them as you need to deal with them, not only will you get to a point where you come to terms with self-acceptance and create more light and acceptance of yourself from that light, but you'll be generating more light, and with that comes action. So there's a breakthrough that's going to occur that will allow you to lead yourself into lightness, into brightness, into action that's going to be more self-fulfilling than you may have felt you have been able to come to previously. We're coming to the Two of Chalice. And I feel like this is, so the Two of Chalice has to do with a connection on an emotional level. And if we go with the theme that seems to be really dominating in this particular reading, that shadow work, connecting with those aspects of yourself that you may have been feeling like you needed to bury because you were in some way, you just didn't want to embrace it because of who or what they were, because of the darkness that you felt that they represented. But once you get to the point and you face those terms of yourself and you walk into lightness, I just feel like there's this connection, this unifying that comes together, the dark and the light, and how it can become one as a result of it's the yin yang, essentially, that symbol that a lot of us are fairly aware of if you're in the esoteric in some facet or another. But that yin yang, the existence of the two in one that makes the whole. This is what I'm getting when you go through the journey of these cards and you come to this card of the Two of Chalice, that unity in the emotions, the chalice being the cups, the emotions that they represent. So that there's a unification that's going to happen when you face the shadows and you embrace those aspects of yourself, and you see the wholeness that you gain when you embrace them instead of trying to shoving them into the shadows. There's a unification, there's a marrying that happens, but it's a marrying within yourself. It's a marrying of yourself and the split that you kind of created, and that had half of you living in the shadows and the other of you trying to survive without that half in generating light. When you go back and you gather and you heal that aspect of yourself, there's a unification that happens. There's a marrying that happens. The two sides of yourself then become whole. And I feel like that's what the Two of Cups, the Two of Chalices is representing. And I feel like this is really coming in strong with, this is where the journey of December can take you. December has a tendency to kind of bring out shadow work for those in the Northern Hemisphere. So I'm not sure if you're in the Northern Hemisphere or if you are just going through something, even if you are in the Southern Hemisphere, and what you're going through may not be linked to nature in and of itself, but maybe other events that make you just feeling a personal winter. Even if you are in the Southern Hemisphere and are, from a nature's perspective, experiencing summer, you may be experiencing a personal winter, and winter has a tendency to bring out those shadow work tendencies, those working internally and healing internally. So whatever the case may be, I feel like the month of December, no matter where you are, is really going to be pulling on that internal work, going into the cave, healing those internal issues, allowing yourself to become whole through the process of healing, recognizing, embracing self, kind of shining light, and then ultimately a unification that is a result of it. And finally, we are ending with the card boundaries. And as you go through this, there's a message that's coming through as far as once you go through the process and you self-embrace and you have that mirroring or unification of this aspect of yourself, you might have to readjust your boundaries as a result of it. So there are people that you may know who've remained in your life or still in your life that might have to become aware of new boundaries that you're going to place as a result of the growth that you're experiencing. But overall, towards the end of the month, there's the process that you're going to go through is eventually going to lead to you creating a moment of, or experiencing a moment of evaluation, and through that evaluation, sort of deciding that you need to make some specific boundaries that allows you to maintain this marriage of self with self that you have experienced as you move through the month. So the end goal will end up being, if you go through the process and you do the work, it'll eventually become creating boundaries so that you can maintain that connection that you experienced, that you participated in and created. All right, Aquarius, that is all I have for you for this month. I hope this reading was everything you're hoping for and more, and we will see you in a future video.